The psychopath, using different pseudonyms, lives with several wives who have no idea about each other. He takes the life of everyone who exposes him, and soon the police are on the trail of the lawbreaker. November 2017. Gaber is a married man who is famous for his kindness and responsiveness. People appreciate him for his good qualities and do not doubt the decency of a man who is ready to help in difficult times. Turning on the music, Gaber prepares dinner, chopping potatoes and vegetables. He puts the meat in the oven when suddenly the driver calls and informs him that he and the loaders will come to him soon. Preparing for the arrival of guests, Gaber looks into the refrigerator where his wife's corpse is hidden and locks it so that no one else can open the door. January 2018. Gaber is holding captive a beautiful girl named Zina. She knows that a man took the life of his own wife and does not understand how no one suspected him of this. Gaber explains that he was always very good-natured and decent. After treating the driver and loaders, he asked to transport the refrigerator to a rented apartment. Having met a neighbor on the street, the man gave him the medicine and did it completely free of charge to help the unfortunate old man. Upon arriving at the rented apartment, Gaber takes a hammer and breaks up the asphalt in the backyard. Having prepared a deep hole, he returns to the apartment to drag his wife's corpse out into the street. It began to rain outside, but this is for the best, since everyone is sitting at home and will not see what is happening. Gaber sends the body of the deceased Abla into a hole and buries it so that no one can discover the deceased. The next morning, Gaber goes to the police station and reports his wife missing. Abla's father calls Gaber to find out where his daughter is, but the man knows nothing and promises to do everything to find her. At the same time, he uses his late wife's phone to send her father a text message allegedly written by Abla. After listening to all this, Zina is amazed by the cruelty and inhumanity of Gaber, but understands that it is better to obey him in everything. Otherwise, the man can take her life too. Salama visits Gaber's mother and blames them for Abla's disappearance. He is sure that his daughter could not run away like that and doom the family to shame, so he assumes that Gaber and his mother are involved in this. The woman is extremely outraged by such statements because she raised her son well and does not doubt his integrity. Meanwhile, the hotel administrator calls a detective since two girls who lived in one of the rooms have run away. Traces were found in the room, and cameras show that only one girl left the room, taking a huge suitcase with her. The detective asked the deputy to take footage from other cameras on the street and track the suspect's movements to understand what happened here. In the evening, Gaber appears at his mother's house to be with a loved one. The woman is very strict, so she pesters her son on every little thing, from his posture to why he doesn't eat well and looks completely thin. The mother talks about the conversation with Abla's father and asks to solve the problem so that Salama does not disgrace her anymore. Meanwhile, the detective returns home and tries to talk to his son. A difficult teenager does not want to communicate with his father because he dreamed of going on a trip, but his father forbade him to do so. The next morning, Gaber goes to the sewing workshop where his good acquaintance and friend runs it. Hag argues with his second wife, Najala, as the girl wants to share his responsibilities and help manage the company. Gaber supports Hug, arguing that a woman should do sewing and running a business is more difficult than it seems at first glance. In the evening, Gaber and Najala meet at another rental apartment, and it turns out that they are secret partners. Gaber gives the girl a clothing store where she can work and promises to deal with her former husband. Soon Najala has to hide because her husband came to Gaber. Hag is tired of these SMS messages and photographs of girls dreaming of meeting him. He is afraid of being exposed as cheating and asks to delete photos of strangers from his phone. Gaber does this using a laptop because he cannot refuse his best friend. Detectives review the records and notice that a girl with a suitcase met with a man and they hid the suitcase in the trunk of a car. Detectives are checking the vehicle, but it was a rental and the name of the person driving it cannot be learned. The next morning, Gaber visits Zina and asks her to call her parents to reassure them. It becomes known that Zina is the daughter of Hag and his first wife, whom Gaber is holding by force in an empty rented apartment. The girl does not speak according to the text prepared in advance, so the man interrupts the conversation with his mother. Soon Zina's family goes to the police and reports missing. In the evening, Gaber returns to Najala and reports that he took the life of Hag so that he would not interfere with their happiness. A man gives a girl a piece of jewelry, but as soon as she tries on the chain, he attacks her with a knife and takes her life. Acting prudently, Gaber hides evidence that could expose him, including the knife he used. Having resolved the issue with the evidence, the man leaves a knife with Hags, after which he writes messages to him from Najala's number. Using a laptop, Gaber logs into the garment factory owner's messenger account and responds to his wife, simulating a quarrel over infidelity. Soon the police arrive on the scene and arrest Haga, suspecting that he committed it and motivated by jealousy. The man denies his guilt, but the evidence proves otherwise. At night, Gaber returns to one of the rented apartments and prepares dinner for Zina. The girl, being captive of a psychopath, prepares to meet him as if it were a romantic date. He tells Zina that he framed her father and took the life of his second wife. The girl reacts calmly to this and admires the ingenuity of the lawbreaker. Feeling romantic, the couple remembers how they met. Many years ago, Gaber was the friend of a girl who dreamed of becoming an actress. She had a fiancé, but she fell in love with Haber. In the evening, upon returning home, Zena was shocked to learn that Gaber had decided to become the husband of her sister Selma. Now Zena wants to test the man's feelings and decides to jump from the balcony to commit unbelievable. Gaber saves the girl, which confirms his feelings. The next day, Gaber meets Noor, a bride who is embarrassed to introduce him to her father. The mother of one of the missing girls goes to the police, but the detective can't help since she disappeared without a trace, leaving no traces or evidence. In the evening, Haber's aunt and mother quarrel over an inheritance inherited from the man's father. The aunt is convinced that she can live in their house, but her mother sends her away since the woman is being kept in a nursing home at Haber's expense. Soon Gaber comes to his mother and learns about what happened. She feels guilty for going to prison and abandoning her son, but she doesn't want anyone to reproach her. One of the mother's caregivers reports receiving an inheritance and asks Gaber to take the money in order to increase it and pay a percentage of the profits. A little later, Gaber meets with Noor, and the girl also trusts him with her money, believing that the groom is not capable of deception. In the evening, Gaber returns home and gives the money to his wife Selma, but this does not improve their difficult relationship. Having learned that the detective wants to talk to him because of the missing Zena, Gaber goes to the police station. He says that they almost didn't communicate with the girl, so he won't help in any way in finding her. In the evening, Gaber goes to the nursing home and meets his aunt. He promises that this is her last night in this place, after which he puts a pillow on an old woman. Soon her funeral takes place and the mother has no idea that her son is a lawbreaker who took the life of his own aunt. The nurse gives the man money because he promises to regularly pay interest on the income. The next morning, Gaber goes to the garment factory and talks with the main manager. As it turned out, Hag signed the documents for the sale of the business, and now Gaber is the new owner of the garment factory, promising to be a good boss. On his way home, a man receives a letter from a blackmailer claiming to know about his bad deeds. Having entered into correspondence with the blackmailer, Gaber prepares money, but realizes that the man speaks in riddles as if he knows nothing about his real deeds. Upon returning home, he hastily collects the money, but decides not to pay it until it gets to know what exactly the blackmailer is accusing of. Meanwhile, Detective Hazem goes to the advertising studio and learns that Hala and Zina were supposed to go to Dubai to film a movie. The actresses communicated with the Lebanese director, and Hazem decides to find him. Communicating with Zina, Gaber recalls how in 1990 his mother took the life of his father. She acted aggressively and, grabbing the first thing that came to hand, began beating her husband. Noticing her son, the woman did not stop and soon found herself in prison. The next morning, Gaber goes to the garment factory and suspects that one of its workers may be blackmailing him. At the same time, the detective is experiencing difficulties with his son, who is grieving the loss of his mother. The boy behaves badly, and his father puts him under house arrest, although he wants to be kinder to the teenager. Soon Hazem studies the video and realizes that the Lebanese director is a fake actor who played his role for a generous reward. In the evening, Gaber goes to the coordinates indicated by the blackmailer and leaves money in the trunk of a burnt car. Hiding nearby, he waits and attacks the blackmailer with a thing. As it turned out, this was one of the workers at the garment factory who considered the man a fraudster who had unfairly taken over the business. A little later, the man talks to Nur on the phone and tells the girl that he cannot invite her to his home. While preparing dinner, Gaber uses a hammer to pound the meat. A garment factory worker sits tied up behind him and he hits her, sending to the other world the woman. The detective finds and interrogates the actor, but realizes that he will not help in finding the missing girls. Fadi begins to worry about her money as Gaber ignores her and does not pay the promised interest. Remembering the past, Gaber does not regret at all that he took the life of his wife. Her father still pesters him, but the man is ready to solve this problem too. Hazem meets with the mother of his late wife, and the grandmother asks him to be more patient with his son and his grandson. Salama turns to private detectives to find his missing daughter. The man suspects that Gaber is the culprit and tells everything he knows about him. The police bring Gaber in for questioning and Fadi becomes even more nervous, afraid of losing his money. The mother calls her son to report the police, and Fadi asks her to return her money at any cost. While detectives and police continue to search for the missing girls, Fadi comes to Gabara to collect the money. At the warehouse, a man attacks his mother's servant and tries to strangle him, after which he grabs the mannequin's hand and hits Fadi with the sharp part. A woman loses her life, but a driver knocks on the door and is able to expose the psychopath. Realizing that he could go to jail, Gaber leaves no witnesses and takes the life of the driver. Having hidden the bodies in the trunk, he goes away from his house and buries both victims in the same hole. Upon returning home, Gaber prepares dinner and remembers that 30 years ago, his mother was an extremely cruel woman. She could punish him for theft and disobedience by sending him to a cage as if he was not her son, but some kind of animal. The next morning, Gaber goes to work and talks with the manager of the garment factory. The man is concerned about the disappearance of one of the workers, but Gaber asks not to take it to heart. Soon, workers laying pipes discover the girl's body and report it to the police. Detective Hazem realizes that this is the body of Hala, whom they have been looking for so long. Gaber learns about this from the news and begins to get nervous. Having told Zina about this, the couple recalls the events of 6 months ago. Zina and Hala quarreled, as a result of which the girl pushed her friend and she lost her life. Concealing the case, she hid Hala in a suitcase and Gaber helped bury. In the evening, the man returns to his pregnant wife and promises to be there, despite the difficult relationship. Gaber's mother and the maid notice that Fadi has disappeared, but no one knows anything about it. The woman asks her son about what happened, and he reports that Fadi and the driver were secret partners and could have run away somewhere. Soon the police come to Selma and Gaber's house to invite them for questioning as Zina's relatives. Adam is having fun with his friends and is scared when his father calls him. The guy does bad things, but is very afraid of punishment because Hazem is not just a detective, but a police chief capable of putting even his own son behind bars. The detective meets one of Haber's mother's servants and realizes that he is not so simple, and people around him are disappearing. The private investigators realize that Salama was right and that Gaber may be involved in disappearance. Reading the news about Haga, Gaber learns that they want to sentence the man to prison, but his health has worsened. Soon he visits the old owner of a garment factory and supports him in every possible way, pretending to be a good person. Hag reports that he decided to transfer the business to his sisters, and this makes Gaber very angry because he took possession of the garment factory by fabricating documents. In the evening, Zina's mother calls the girl to understand what is happening to her. Hiding in the city, Zina declares that she works in Dubai, but her mother has a hard time trusting her because the body of her daughter's friend was discovered tonight. Moreover, she was first poisoned and only then hit on the head. Meanwhile, Gaber's mother becomes ill and remembers the case, because of which her son lost his father. The mother asks Gaber where Fadi disappeared, but he remains silent. The woman realizes that her son has done something not good and hits him in the face, causing Gaber to run outside. Salama and the detective contact the police to file a report and provide the materials they managed to collect. Hazem promises to look into everything and begins to take an interest in the suspect. As it turned out, all this time Gaber was cleverly hiding, using someone else's name. He was known as Yusuf in one part of the city and as Gaber in opposite areas. While the police continue to search for the psychopath who took Hala's life, Gaber meets with a potential buyer of the garment factory. Realizing that Hag can pass on the inheritance to his generation at any moment, he is in a hurry to get at least some money and is ready for any trick. The police understand that handsome Gaber and the dubious Yusuf are one and the same person. Yusuf was once a friend and did business with him, but at some point he disappeared and Gaber probably took his life. Selma learns from her mother that she is communicating with the missing Zina. The girl persuades her mother to let them talk on the phone because she understands that her younger sister lies too much and is clearly hiding something from them. Gaber recalls how Yusuf decided to stop doing business with him 5 years ago. Acting proactively, he began to pretend to be Yusuf and met Hag in order to take over his garment factory in the future. Meanwhile, Hazem exposes his son, who deceives him even over trifles. The man is tired of the constant lies and asks Adam to be honest, otherwise he will never leave the house. The mother calls Zina back, but Selma takes the phone and begins interrogating her sister. She understands that Zina has not left anywhere and is hiding somewhere nearby, so she promises to contact the police and do everything to find her. Gaber suggests stopping the call and never communicating with her mother again, and the girl agrees with this decision. A little later, Selma calls Gaber and informs her of her decision, hoping that her husband will support her. The pregnant woman rushes to the police station, but Hazem is not there and she has to return home empty-handed. Gaber brings the buyer to the factory and receives an advance payment, but it takes a few more days to agree on the deal. Police officers from different departments begin to communicate with each other to understand what Gaber and Yusuf are like. The buyer of the factory finds out that Gaber is dishonest and agrees to help the police catch him. The next morning, the man is very nervous, and the manager of the garment factory warns Gaber that an ambush is being prepared for him. The psychopath flees and Hazem pursues him. At some point, Gaber manages to move to another roof and throw off the only way to him. Hazem threatens the lawbreaker with a gun, but he uses a random person as a shield, saving his life. Returning to Zina, he offers to run away, but the girl refuses. She admits that she hated Gaber all her life. At this moment, he realizes that all their communication is his hallucination. There were no romantic conversations or dates, because all this time Zina was an exhausted prisoner sitting on a chain. Hearing that the police are already close, Gaber sets the house on fire with the girl and escapes. The police make it in time and pull Zina out of the burning house. Sometime later, the girl wakes up in the hospital and begins to get nervous, realizing that she is handcuffed to her bed. At the same time, Hazem meets with the girl's family to tell them the whole truth. As it became known, Gaber and Yusuf are the same person. Moreover, he has other pseudonyms. The man is behind many bad deeds and took the life of Hala. However, there are suggestions that Zina helped him in this and may go to prison. The doctor reports that the family can see Zina, but the father does not want this. Her mother and older sister visit the girl, but she screams and chases them away, still in shock from what happened. In a personal conversation with a police officer, Selma talks about how she first met her husband. The next morning, Hazem interrogates Zina and learns about her acquaintance with Gaber. The girl didn't even know the man's real name, but was constantly subjected to increased attention from him. He tried to get her into bed for years, and then he married Selma and lost interest in her. 6 months ago, he offered her a role in a huge series and invited her to Dubai. The girl tried to discuss this with her parents, but they sharply denied Zina the opportunity to travel to another country. Trying to change their decision, the girl asked Gaber to negotiate not only for her role, but also for her friend Hala. The next morning, Gaber said that everything had been decided, but in order to fly to Dubai, Hala needed to sell the car and give all the money to him. Soon the fake director signed a contract with the girls. A little later, Gaber poisoned Hala, but made it all sound as if Zina had taken the life of her best friend. As a result of this, the girl found herself captive of a psychopath who told her about all his bad deeds. Upon returning home, Hazem apologizes to his son for his rudeness and tries to find a common language. Adam understands and forgives his father because he wants the best for him. Gaber realizes that his two identities have been exposed, so he pretends to be a third person and meets with his fiancée Noor. The girl thinks that the man is transporting goods, but he has problems at customs. She is ready to withdraw all the money from the account and give it to him, believing that this will speed up their marriage. A little later, Gaber's mother calls and asks him to come home, as she is very ill. The son agrees, not suspecting that this is a trick of the police, who dream of getting him. Hazem and his assistants try to track the location of Gaber's phone, but the phone conversation was too short. The police make the psychopath mother to call him again, but this only confirms his assumptions that she is doing this under pressure. Realizing that his mother is luring him into an ambush, Gaber turns off his phone, preventing him from being tracked. The police threaten the woman with prison, but she does not believe that her son is a lawbreaker because he always seemed to be a very good and decent person. Hazem leaves the elderly woman's house and asks for surveillance, both here and in all the places where he appeared under any of the pseudonyms. A couple of days later, Hasjem and his assistants spot a woman dressed in black heading towards Gaber's mother's house. They assume that this is a man in disguise and caught him, but it turns out to be one of the neighbors who came to visit a sick old woman. She did this on behalf of Gaber, but he changes his phone, and it is impossible to track him. Soon Salama comes to Gaber's mother's house and realizes that his daughter is no longer alive. He begs to catch the lawbreaker and believes that their family will be punished by the powers above. Hazem promised to give a ride to his son, but because of work he forgets about it. Soon the family again visits Zena in the hospital room, but she and her father quarrel a lot because there is no mutual understanding between them. Soon Hazem visits the girl and asks her to remember how it all happened. Shortly before the girls were due to fly to Dubai, Gaber brought them to a hotel and asked them to spend the night there for a few days. It seemed that their dream had come true and that the best friends would earn money by becoming famous actresses. A little later, Gaber wrote to Zena that he had an important conversation with her. He told the girl that Hala was going behind her back and started dating the director to get the role of her friend. Zena was not ready to say goodbye to her dream, but Gaber proposed a plan that would allow her not to lose her dream job. He gave her a bottle of juice with sleeping pills inside. If Hala had fallen asleep and not gotten out of bed for a couple of days, she would have been sent to the crowd, and Zena would have become the main character of the series. Returning to the motel, the girl treated her friend to juice, after which they began to quarrel. It soon became clear that the bottle contained not a sleeping pill, but poison, which made Kala feel sick. The girl lost consciousness and fell, hitting her head. Soon she left this world, but the cause was precisely poison, and not a blow to the corner of the closet. After listening to the story, the policeman and the psychologist understand that Gaber is a terrible psychopath who has difficulty perceiving reality. Zena continues to remember the night when she took out her friend in a suitcase. Seeing the deceased, she wanted to escape, but Gaber hit her on the head and took her prisoner. In the present time, Gaber comes to the football field and follows the policeman's son, filming him on his mobile phone. Hazem returns home and realizes that his son is nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Noor is watching TV and notices a news story about a psychopath. The girl recognizes Gaber from the sketch and understands that he is a lawbreaker. The man is just outside the door, but Noor calls the police and he has to run for his life. Realizing that the situation is getting worse, Gaber kidnaps Adam and sends the police a video of his son. Hazem interrogates the psychopath's mother, but she really can't help. Meanwhile, Gaber holds Adam in an unknown location and calls a police officer to begin blackmailing him. Gaber offers Hazem an exchange of his son for his mother. The policeman doubts that the woman will want to date her son, but the psychopath leaves him no other choice. Hazem must follow the instructions and bring his mother to the appointed place, otherwise he will take Adam's life. Hazem tells his assistant about everything, and he goes to the hospital to talk with Zena again and find out something that will help catch the lawbreaker. The girl remembers that Gaber once had a friend named Yusuf, but he took his life due to betrayal. Zena also remembers his wife named Abla. From conversations with Gaber, she learned that the woman decided to file for divorce, but her husband strangled her and hid her body in the refrigerator. Having learned the possible burial place of the dead, the police go there and dig a hole where they find the skeletons of a man and a woman. The policeman is seriously worried about the kidnapping of his son and cannot find a place for himself. Soon Gaber calls him and Hazem asks for the opportunity to talk with Adam to make sure that his son is still alive. Adam begs his father to come and save him, so Hazem agrees to Haber's terms and promises to come to the appointed place. After talking to the psychopath, the policeman calls the assistant and offers to use a tracking beacon so that help arrives at the hostage exchange site after him. Meanwhile, the police continue to search for bodies and find 3 more corpses on the territory of the burnt house. Reporters create a high-profile story against the backdrop of recent events. People gather near Gaber's mother's house who are ready to take the lives of both her and her bad deeder son. Hazem visits the woman and offers to go with him to meet Gaber. The policeman takes the lawbreaker's mother away and contacts him for further instructions. Realizing that Hazem will not give up the idea of catching him, Gaber hides the policeman's son in a secluded place. Soon Hazem arrives at the meeting place, not realizing that the lawbreaker is armed. A minute later, the policeman and the psychopath come face to face. Hazem threatens Gaber with a pistol, but he covers himself with Adam's body, demanding that he hand over his mother. Fearing for his son's life, the policeman throws away the gun and continues to follow the psychopath's instructions. Soon, police and special forces arrive, surrounding the hostage exchange site. Gaber invites his mother to escape, but she refuses as she is ashamed of such a son. Losing control of himself, the psychopath threatens to commit unbelievable. Adam takes the opportunity and pushes the psychopath away to run and hide. Gaber starts shooting at the policeman, but accidentally hits the mother, causing the woman to lose her life in front of her own son. Hazem wounds the lawbreaker, after which he attacks Gaber with his fists and beats the psychopath. The deputy arrives and stops the policeman and arrests Gaber. After receiving several sentences, Gaber is kept in a psychiatric hospital as he is declared insane. Sometime later, Gaber's accomplice comes to the scene and takes the money that he had been collecting and hiding for so long all this time.